And we're back. This is going to be a special episode. This is going to be a special one. I'm feeling it. Are you feeling it?
Oh, I'm feeling it.
You already know what time it is. I think this episode deserves a special intro. And you already know what I'm thinking. So ikimashou. Minasan genki desu ka? Ohayo, konnichiwa, konbanwa. あなたが世界のどこにいても私たちの番組を見てくれてありがとうございます。Once again in English. Let's go. How's everyone doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are in the world. Thank you for watching our show. We are the Conflict Management Show. We are an MMA, sports combat, UFC podcast where we, chop it up our thoughts, opinions, news, fights, all that good stuff. I am your co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, the awkward, awesome one, Mr. Half Man, Half Amazing. First name him, last name Othi. I am Himothy. Mr. Main Event, Malik Miles, and my co-host.
Future Hall of Famer, one namer. It's Edom back again, one more time with the UFC 310 pay-per-view preview and a lot of exciting fights. This is going to be probably a longer one, so strap
Yeah.
in if you're just getting started.
And, we got the superstar from Japan, Kai Asakura. That's the reason why our intro was in Japanese today. But before that, we were chatting a little bit offline about, The Ultimate Fighter. It should be coming back soon. We were both fans of the originals. I still watch it fairly heavy enough. And then, so for you, my friend, what two coaches, what combination, what duo, if you heard when they make their announcement, hey, it's going to be team so-and-so versus team so-and-so, team A versus team B, what two fighters, what two coaches would bring you back to watching The Ultimate Fighter? Like, which one would, like, just when you hear it, you'd be like, man, I want to see this. I need to see this. I'm tuning in. ESPN Plus,
Okay,
ESPN
so
proper.
the two proposals that I thought about for this are both pretty unlikely, unfortunately, in my opinion. Uh, the first more traditional proposal that I had for this was me forcing a fight that I really want to see and that sometimes it feels like we're maybe not going to get uh, is Jose Aldo Dominic Cruz. I want that fight super bad. It seems like those guys are on their last like one, maybe two, and I definitely need to see that before they both retire. They're both of a similar age. It's Dominic Cruz hasn't fought in a while, although has been active, but he has that loss, which I don't think was a loss, but he's coming off a loss. And so I need to see this for closure. The fact that these guys have been swimming in the same water and haven't gotten matched up together, to me, I need this one before they both go. Even if it's not the prime one that I like we would have wanted to see, I still would like the hypothetical now. I think they're still both super high level. They're legends of the game. I think that you could build a really significant card around this. And if for whatever reason, if they both decided at the same time to retire, I think the package that you could put together for after the fight would be one of the biggest moments that the UFC could make. Like two legends in the same night. It's win or lose. Like the result doesn't necessarily matter. You're tuning in for one big moment that you will remember exactly where you were if you're a fight fan when Dominic Cruz and Jose Aldo both retired from the sport. So that would be my first one that I think would really get me interested.
That would be an interesting one. I like that. I like that choice. I like that duo. I would definitely check in for that. And I think the fighters of that season would gain a lot from being on Team Aldo or Team Cruz because, like you said, they're legends of the sport. They both are really, really knowledgeable of the ins and outs. And I think fighters on the come up could really like benefit a lot from whichever team you were on. So, do you have an idea of what weight class you'd like to see in that season, or a split like a dual weight class type thing? Like what two
Um,
weight classes you'd like to see, or just one weight class? And would you want it half guys, half girls, or just a girl season, guy season?
Honestly, I'd probably consult with Aldo and Cruz and their teams and sort of see what they think. I think probably the best in terms of them being able to impart knowledge. I mean, I think they could both do it for any weight class. They're so smart and knowledgeable about the fight game that they could really do it for anybody. But I think probably if you're looking for easier storylines, kind of one-to-one teaching points, you're probably looking at the lighter weight classes like 55 and under in terms of the type of skill set that you need to be that those guys have of being so well rounded and the type of tips that they can give and the cardio and all those stuffs. Like once you get to 170 still probably applies, but like once you get to middleweight, like 185 and above, then there's kind of more specialist opportunities if you're just a heavy-handed guy that you can use more of a singular skill set. But I think anything 155 and below for sure would work there. And like you said, definitely uh, any of the female weight classes would completely work also in terms of we see all the time that a lot of those fights go to decision just because of the sort of physical realities of the women's MMA game. And so a lot of them need to be really well rounded too. So they're going to need the cardio, they're going to need the 5 round kind of knowledge and experience and what those guys can give. So I think it's wide open for what weight classes they can do, especially because it doesn't have to be like, you know, the UFC is kind of broken with that mold of, oh, it's got to be sort of something like the weight class of the coaches. Like they broke that mold a while ago. So it doesn't necessarily have to be 135, even though they're both at 135.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like the lighter weight class 155 and lower, bantamweight, flyweight, featherweight, lightweight. I think that would probably be like the sweet spot. Straw weight, uh, for the women's division, uh, strawweight,
Flyweight,
flyweight.
bantamweight. Hmm.
Second, flyweight,
Strawweight,
bantamweight. Okay,
yeah, strawweight, flyweight, bantamweight.
okay, yeah, that's what. Okay, that I was just making sure I remembered it correctly. Flyweight, strawweight, and bantamweight. For me, I think this is. I think my first proposal is going to be the best lineup, best coaching duo that the Ultimate Fighter has had in 30 seasons. Better than, I would say, it would top the Rampage Rashad season. I think it would like top the Grosso Valentina like season, and we all know that was last season was Team Grosso versus Team Shevchenko. I was Team Grosso all the way. Have been Team Grosso forever in a day. It's always Team Grosso. As we all know, Alexa Grosso is one of my favorite fighters of all time. We're going in the female division flyweights. She's the queen of the flyweights. But my two picks would be a heavyweight showdown between two of the best heavyweights in the UFC today, of the up and comers. This is given that like the Jones Aspinall fight doesn't happen. If it does happen, I think Jones Aspinall would be a fun Ultimate Fighter season. I think both fighters would benefit greatly from either one. But
I would
the
worry
one
about
I'm
that
talking about,
combo. I
Say
would
again?
worry about that combo specifically ending up getting to the ring. Like if you're the UFC and you get that fight agreed, I think you just try and make it happen as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's not the combo I'm talking about. Yes, that would be cool, but no, I'm saying this is given that it doesn't work out or for whatever reason, or maybe they need to push it back. Let's say they like something happens, they need to push it back like 2 years, a year, whatever it may be, or it just doesn't happen. But the fight that I'm talking about, the pair that I'm talking about is Prince of Paris, the pride of Paris, Bongaman himself, French superstar, former interim heavyweight champion, Cyril Gane against English superstar, British brawler. I mean, he's got jujitsu too, but I feel that, that's what it is. Current interim heavyweight champion, Tom Aspinall. I think that a Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane Ultimate Fighter season would draw all the eyes back to the Ultimate Fighter. I think it would kind of like reinvigorate the Ultimate Fighter season, because we're talking about two fighters in the premier division, the heavyweight division, where they're at the peak of their popularity right now, right? You have Bongaman, the French superstar Cyril Gane. He is the face of French MMA. He is a great ambassador for the sport. He's super brand friendly. He has very exciting fight style. Has went on a tear in his heavyweight run. Since the Spivak, what was it, Pavlovich? Spivak was the last fight. Since then, right? This man they brought him out for the Paris Olympics for the boxing and the judo to do the little tap, tap, tap with the stick. He was in Netflix's The Cage recently, getting his acting chops. Actually, great series. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend seeing it. John Jones is in it. Cyril Gane's in it. Morgan Charrier is in it. Just top tier thing, right? He's also been modeling settings. He's been acting on Netflix. He's been modeling. He's been making an appearance at the French Olympics. This dude is a star. And on top of that, when you watch a Cyril Gane fight, it's gonna be a good time. He's a great striker. He makes it exciting to watch. Tom Aspinall, current interim champion. He's also very exciting because there's not a whole lot of tape, because when he shows up and shows out and puts people out, right? When you've seen him against Curtis Blades, I said Tom Aspinall was going to win that fight, but then I think that it's very interesting because it's current interim champion versus former interim champion. The fight, it will be, can Cyril Gane be a two-time interim heavyweight champion? The first time that's ever happened. Will Tom Aspinall sign script and be like, I am the best heavyweight? Because I think when people look at who's the future of the heavyweight division, it's between Cyril and Tom. And I think that getting to see a fight between them would be the best matchup you can make at heavyweight outside of John Jones. But I would like to see it happen with heavyweights. This be a heavyweight season, because I think that out of all of the divisions so far, heavyweight's probably the one with the not as deep depth chart of fighters. Like lightweight is super stacked, welterweight is super stacked, middleweights is fairly stacked as well. Bantamweight, flyweight, there's a lot of people in these things. And when you look at the rankings, the top 10 for heavyweight, it's John Jones at the top of the mountain by himself. And then, a notch under him is Cyril and Tom as the two best heavyweights of this current generation. And then this is where they are. This is where Tom is compared, or this is where John is compared to Cyril and Tom. And then it's the rest of the heavyweight division down here. You know what I mean? Because outside of those two, there is Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis, who are fun fighters and everyone enjoys watching and has not that part to put out anybody. And then, Volkov is getting his name out there too. He's out here combing the hair with the kickboxing and all that stuff. But outside of that, who's really in heavyweight? But I think that when you look at those three, do we think any of those three would beat Cyril or Tom? So I think to get some new blood into new faces, new excitement in heavyweight would be really fun and really dope. And I think all the upcoming heavyweights would have a lot to learn from Cyril and Tom. And it would be just a fun season in general. And then the lead up to it would be pretty spectacular. So that's my choice.
Okay.
Have it, or we could do it Team France versus Team UK with for heavyweights. That's also
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. I would definitely tune in for that. Like you said, there's a lot of different angles that you could take. I don't know if the UK and France alone have enough heavyweights, considering it feels like there's a kind of global shortage on heavyweights. But you could definitely have that kind of angle with it. Of maybe like I don't know if there's a bunch of European heavyweights. Maybe there is, and you could
yeah.
just like split them up that way. Of like maybe geographically, like Northern Europe versus Southern Europe kind of deal,
And
something
if
like
there's
that.
not enough for that, just do a heavyweight season. Like find the
Mm,
best heavyweights across the world who aren't signed to the UFC. And even if you don't do heavyweights, if you wanted to do a Team France versus Team UK, uh,
mm,
just get the best fighters who aren't signed to the UFC, who are who are from France and from the UK. Have them kind of like battle it out to see who gets to represent Team France and who gets to represent Team UK, and then you can kind of go from there as far as matchups go. And then I think they could do it like how the UFC used to do the Ultimate Fighter back in the day, where you had to fight to get into the house, or in this case, you have to like fight to like represent Team France. That would be obviously led by like Bongaman, or you have to fight to like represent Team UK under captained by Tommy Aspinall, because I think both are at the peak of their popularity right now. Because we saw that at John Jones's fight with Stipe, people were chanting Tom Aspinall's name during that press conference. People want to see him.
mm.
You know, like I said with Cyril, he's a superstar in France. He is the face of French MMA. He is the guy in France, and I think if you're a fan of the sport, it's hard not to enjoy watching a Cyril fight. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
Buddy is out here modeling. He's out here on Netflix, acting on Netflix shows. He's out here representing UFC, France in general in the Olympics. You know, that feels like it's a big deal if you get invited to come and be the person that hits the little stick for the Olympics for any sport, you know? Because the people they had to do it, they had Snoop Dogg come out and do it for one of the events. They had Cyril come out. I mean, these are superstars. These are big names. So I think that like when you put both of those together, I think yeah, that would be fun. And then what's your second proposal?
Okay, so that one was more traditional for me, my first one. For the second one, my proposal would be something, I don't know, it feels like, especially now that we might have a break in tradition anyway of the two coaches not fighting each other at the end, perhaps this is an opportunity after the McGregor Chandler season to open it up larger to guys who aren't going to necessarily fight at the end of the thing. I think that that'd be a really interesting angle. So for me, I would love to see a legend season to help introduce new fans to some of the old guys, and you could use that time to show highlights of the old legends and stuff, and they could be passing on, and like you could have them even at the PI, like have a projector up and they could be breaking down some of their film of like, hey, he did this and I did that. So I would like a legend season between, and so I'm going to set it up with the easiest way that we can appeal to new fans with that is ultimate, like bad guy one side, good guy the other side. So the season's going to be Chael Sonnen versus GSP.
I'm not mad at that. That actually
Right?
sounds great. That sounds phenomenal. So are you just finding all of the heels from yesteryear or like the past,
No, no,
all the
no.
heels that were legends from the past against all the like baby faces of the past as well?
No, no,
Like
no. They're
all
not going to
the
fight.
heels that are legends and the baby faces that are legends?
No, no, no. They're not going to fight. So what's going to happen is you're going to bring in the way that you're going to do the teams is you're going to let the guys, it's whatever the weight class is going to be. You're just going to have two teams. It's going to be the same weight class. It's going to go back to one weight class. There's no splitting. It's going to be one weight class, and you're going to have the good guy side with GSP and the bad guy side with Chael Sonnen. And they're both gonna do it's gonna play out like a normal Ultimate Fighter season, but all of the personality stuff is handled. But there's no fight at the end of the thing where GSP's not gonna fight Chael. They're both retired, so you don't have the final payoff with the coaches fighting. But the rest of the season is run the same, and you get to have like the banter and the back and forth with two guys who can do that. Because a lot of times what we end up with is the coaches are good fighters, but sometimes they need a lot of help to show their personality through the TV show. So instead, we take care of that with legends of the sport who are already pretty good at showing their personality, like just given very minimal to work with. But now you give them a full-time camera crew to follow them around, and there could be a lot more kind of lighthearted interaction because they're not going to fight. So it can be more of a traditional, like back and forth kind of banter instead of like a very serious, like shoving match.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that. I'm not mad at that. I like that. I like that. I think
And I'm
for
sure
me,
like the legend aspect of it also helps because
yeah.
they're still involved in the game. GSP still trains a lot. He's still at TriStar. Chael works for the UFC now. So they're both involved in the fight game a lot. They still watch a lot. They still are. So they have like old lessons of, hey, this is kind of like what to do with your career, but also kind of newer lessons of like, oh, this is the evolution of the game since I was fighting. This is what it was, and this is what I'm seeing now. So I think that the segments for the viewers would also be really interesting, as well as giving the insight to the fighters.
Yes. I think that would be really good. Sorry, I was checking something for the later for my second pick. I was wanted to make sure I had the right the right idea for what I was trying to do. So my second choice. It's I think the Gone Team Gone versus Team Aspinall is potentially very likely and would be amazing. I think this one's more of an unrealistic choice because generally it needs to be champion versus contender, like champion, not contender, but champion versus challenger. This one, neither of them are champions, and they're kind of in the middle of their division.
Mm.
But I think their personalities would make for a really fun season, and it would be Brian Battle versus Joaquin Buckley.
Okay.
I think that both of them. I think I think you could do like a welterweight/middleweight season, and then either do welterweight or middleweight, right? Do a welterweight season or a middleweight season, right? Or do half welterweights, half female bantamweights. Or because I feel like the bantamweight division, outside of Kayla Harrison and Juliana Pena, it's a kind of a similar situation for heavyweight, like a similar situation as heavyweight, where flyweight and strawweight are stacked. You know what I mean? It's pretty stacked with talent, and it's the depth chart. It's very deep with talent in those weight classes, But I think that bantamweight, it could use some new fighters to like really kind of like put more eyes and kind of like make it really interesting, Because I think out of bantamweight, the only like stars or the only draws are really Kayla Harrison, who's amazing, and Juliana Pena, who's also amazing. So I think that, like, consider when we look at flyweight, there's a bunch of people. You know what I mean? There's Alexa Grasso, there's Valentina, there is Natalia Silva, there is, who's up and coming, who's great. And when we look at like the straw weights, there's Wei Li, there is Lupi, there is Tatiana Suarez, you know what I mean? So I think that would be good for that. And then also, Brian Battle's promo cut that he had recently. I think Brian Battle's a good fighter. He was in the Ultimate Fighter. He was the winner of his season, if I remember correctly. So he kind of has that experience of, like, as a coach being like, okay, helping people who are coming up through the Ultimate Fighter now. He can kind of like help with that experience and be like, hey, if you want to make it to the UFC, this is what you're going to do. Hey, guys, I was in the house, so I understand what you're going through. Hey, this and this. Joaquin Buckley, man, this man's got striking. He's got the striking. He's very, like, entertaining, right? I think he could help a lot because he's been in the division for a while, so he could help upcoming fighters. But both of their personalities, I feel like, would make for an entertaining season. But if I had my choice, I would definitely choose the Team Gone versus Team Aspinall season.
Yeah, no, I think that's an underrated kind of idea to me, because I don't know, there's a lot of different ways to take the Ultimate Fighter, and I think that we both laid out two kind of interesting ones to go with in terms of, like, as a vehicle for up and coming guys who have personality to showcase it, to get more fan exposure. Like you're saying with the Brian Battle and the Joaquin Buckley, like two guys who definitely have all the personality. And then, like, on my idea, the kind of like legends of the sport to kind of bring in and educate some of the newer fans on what the history of the sport is, and kind of bring it all kind of together. I think we both laid out two really cool paths that you could do. And like you say, the kind of more traditional ones that we laid out of Aldo Cruz and Aspinall Gone, I think those both work. But maybe something like one of our ideas is that new, fresh direction that could give the Ultimate Fighter kind of new life and have people tune in and see something different.
Sorry, can we pause for like 2 seconds? I was trying to see.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll be right back. And we're back.
yeah, sorry about that. As you were saying.
I was just saying, we've come up with some really fresh kind of takes on how you could reinvigorate and kind of reimagine the Ultimate Fighter while still having the core of the show be the same. So hopefully that's something that they look at, that they're thinking about, because it does seem like they are committed to the Ultimate Fighter and continuing it as a legacy program for the UFC, and having, one day we're looking back 20 years of the Ultimate Fighter and all that stuff. So hopefully there'll be a second life for the show, because I think we all want to see the Ultimate Fighter back to kind of the importance that it had when it first came out, even if it's in a different way.
I agree. I think that because I feel like the Ultimate Fighter had meant a lot to us on the come up. When we were first getting into the sport, it was a lot of the superstars today come from, like, the Ultimate Fighter. We kind of got to see them through their rise, and kind of like Juliana Pena. We've talked before, I was a fan of her during her season, and I was like, man, she's dope. Like, she's really awesome, man. Like, I was a fan of her character, like her, and kind of got to see her kind of rise through the rankings and kind of have her ups and her downs. Joanne Calderwood was also on the Ultimate Fighter. Forrest Griffin, Rashad Evans, Nate Diaz.
Raquel
I believe Nate Diaz,
Pennington.
right? Huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think both of the Diaz
Yeah.
brothers were. Definitely Nate was. I can't remember if Nick was, but Kenny Florian, Raquel Pennington.
Yep.
Uh,
Brian Battle. uh, a bunch of people.
Yeah,
Muhammad Usman, hmm?
mostly of yesteryear were
Yeah,
the people who translated to becoming more stars, but you still had when
Michael Chiesa, yeah,
when the UFC brought in the female divisions and you had Rose Namajunas and
yeah,
Ronda Rousey and all of the divisions that were born out of that Ultimate Fighter season.
yeah. So it's been it was like and I feel like things like the Contender Series is now the main thing, because I remember the Ultimate Fighter was the platform. It's like, hey, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. You make it here. It was kind of like if you won the Ultimate Fighter, it was kind of like a stepping stone to like superstardom. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you already had a fan base baked in, and chances are, like if you made it on the Ultimate Fighter, you were kind of like on your way to being dope.
Mhm.
But as we get into this fights, biggest like a big moment, you know, there's like multiple big moments. There's title eliminators, there's uh number one contender fights, there's history being made, you know, Cyril Gane versus Volkov, where that's like a kind of where, you know, two of the top ranked heavyweights fighting each other to see who will be the next person to fight John. I mean, John or Tom, right? We have the Shafkat versus Ian Gary, 18-0 versus 15-0. Someone's O must go. It is, and the person who wins that will finally fight Bilal. And then we have Kaya Sakura versus Pantoja, where Kaya Sakura has a chance to become the first ever Japanese champion, first champion from Japan, which is also very exciting because I feel combat is ingrained. Combat, that warrior spirit, that samurai spirit is ingrained in our culture, our people. As martial arts is kind of like, it's like the home of martial arts, right?
Mhm.
Where over the years, Japan has produced many superstars upon superstars, legends, that will live on in the history books of our sport, immortalized for their accomplishments, right? You have your Kazushi Sakurabas, your Takanori Gomis, your Yoshihiro Akiyamas, Yushino Kami, Karu Uno, Megumi Fuji, Kid Yamamoto, Shinya Oki, Kyoji Horaguchi, all these superstars and legends from the past, along with this new wave of superstars like Tatsuro Taira, who we're a big fan of, Rinya Nakamura, Rei Tsuruya, and now Kaya Sakura. This new wave of Japanese superstars who are kind of pushing that front forward, right? And it's been since 2017 since the last time the UFC has been to Japan, which is a very long time. But also, we didn't have, and then generally, the UFC looks to have superstars before they go to a place. Now that they have Ilia Topuria, they can go to Georgia or Spain. They waited to go to France until they had someone like Cyril, right? So I think that this could be that moment. And so, growing up, watching Pride Fighting Championship, there was all these, really big stars, like we said, the Gracie Hunter, Kazushi Sakuraba, the Fireball Kid, Takanori Gomi. There was all these, and there was other superstars that came from Pride, like Rampage and like Dan Henderson and Anderson Silva and all these great people, right? And, but then, I think during that time, when we were like originally getting into sport, during the time of like Yushin Okami, Yoshihiro Akiyama, Lyoto Machida, became champion. It was really dope. But all the champions from Japan, when they would come, like Kid Yamamoto, all the other ones, none of them, they all became star. They were all superstars, and they came to the UFC, but never got the chance to become champions. And Saturday may be that chance for, in the words of Gambit, for Kaya Sakura to make a name for himself.
Mhm.
So, just in case you don't know who these people are, or if you are like a fan of the sport, a hardcore fan, chances are if you're watching this show, you're probably already a fan of MMA, or maybe you're just getting into it. But either way, we will go into it. So if you don't know who Kaya Sakura is, he has star potential. We talk about this championship charisma. He's got it. He's a mega star from Japan, 21-4. 16 of his 21 wins are by finish. 12 of his 13 knockouts are in the first round. He's got powerful knees, a lot of power for someone who's 125 pounds. Just power for days, the speed, the feints, the power. He is exciting. He is, I would say, the equivalent of like a Justin Gaethje. He is exciting and he goes for the finish. Some people, some people say, oh, you going in there with a pat, pat, 1-2, just a pepper him, like pop, pop, pop. Nah, he's dumping a whole bottle of seasoning in. He's like taking off the top and just going after it, right? He's very exciting. He goes for the finish. He goes for the knockouts. And like his record is 21-4. 16 of those 21 wins are finishes. So you already know he's going for it. And also, on top of just being a really great fighter, like we say, our sport is past the point where you could just be a good fighter and just make it. You have to have a personality. Why should we watch you? Why should we care, right? And if you're wondering, he's making his debut against the champion for a belt. And you're like, how is someone who isn't ranked, who's making their debut, getting a shot against the champion? Well, he's a megastar. He's a megastar from Japan. He is the guy over there. But on top of having 13 knockouts, 12 of those being the first round, he has like 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube. So he already brings a crazy amount of fans with him and has an entire country on his back. And when we saw him during the press conference, man, it's cool as the other side of the pillow. He came into the press conference, shades on, got the nice suit on, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, hey, the champ is good, but he fights not to lose. I fight to win and be exciting, because that's what a champion does. Puts on exciting fights and puts on a show for the fans. I was like, oh man, I was like, oh man, this dude he's out here. He says, people was asking him, hey, what's it feel like to fight in the UFC, be in the biggest promotion, fighting instead of cage instead of ring? He said, man, for the last 5-6 years, I am the main event. I've been fighting in nothing but main events, championship fights, sold out arenas. When you are the main event, the success of the event hinges on you. You have to, send the fans home happy. And he says he's used to the pressure, he's used to the fame. And he was a superstar. He was him. He was that guy. He was him, I think. he in Japan now he wants to do that for the UFC, and he brings I think he could bring a lot of. He's very funny, very like he's got a good, he's charismatic. And then if you don't know who Pantoja is, he is 18 finishes. This will be his third title defense. Never been finished. He's beaten the likes of greats like Brandon Moreno. He's beaten the super down and just big dog Brandon Royval, Paul Usyk when he was coming up. So I think that this is the classic like unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Kaya Sakura only knows exciting fights, and he only knows how to knock people out and send them home packing. Pantoja has never been knocked down or knocked out or finished in his professional career. If I'm not mistaken, he's 8-0 in the UFC right now. So he's very well-rounded. Pantoja's got good striking. He's obviously the better grappler of the two, right? He's got the submissions. And Asakura Kai's best defense is he has an extremely good offense. He's going in to put the lights out and send the crowd home happy and blow the roof off the top of the stadium. Couldn't be bigger of a fight. But what is your opinions on it?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting matchup, and it sets the stage for Asakura to really announce himself, because Pantoja is a pressure fighter. He's known for having a really solid chin, but I mean, we've seen that with other, different weight classes, but we've seen guys like Chuck Liddell who were known for their forward pressure and their iron chin, and you can't break them. Well, until he gets broken, and then it's kind of all over. And that's something that I've noticed in the past few Pantoja fights is he does leave himself open a lot. He is hands down running forward into the danger a lot, and it's really impressive that he weathers the storm. His grappling transitions are great. He's so fast at scrambling and beating guys to the next position and securing rounds when he needs them. His in-fight IQ is really good in terms of if he knows that he needs this round, he'll go out and he'll get the takedown by any means necessary. He will go and he'll push through it and he'll get it. But the question's going to be is, can that approach work against somebody who we haven't seen them tested by UFC competition yet, but the competition he has faced, he has shown very heavy hands that might be the heaviest in the division as of right now. So, can Pantoja push through a heavy-handed guy like that? The test that you would want to see, that you would say, "Oh, well, he already dealt with this, so yes, he can." But we didn't really get to see uh, a series with Figueiredo where you would say, "Oh, he can deal with the heavy-handed guy who can translate his power." Uh, so there's definitely a lot to be concerned about if you're a Pantoja fan and you're thinking, "Oh, who's this guy? He wasn't even in the UFC, so this is going to be a walkover. This is going to be easy." It's not going to be easy. There's definitely going to be at least some moments of adversity. Uh, but if you're building the case for it, I would say if it goes to decision, you got to love Pantoja against anybody. That's not a shot at Asakura. It's just the way Pantoja fights. If it goes to decision, he's probably winning it. His cardio is great. Uh, Not only the gas tank, but how hard he can push with that gas tank. It's not like he's got a big one and he's just managing it over 25 minutes. It's when he needs it and it looks like he's spent, he refills really nicely and just has an extra gear to go. So if it goes to decision, you like Pantoja, but if it goes to decision also, that's going to be 25 minutes that you're sitting on the edge of your seat because the highlights that I've seen from Asakura show he really only needs one to really land on you, and he's going to change the entire trajectory of the fight. It's so I gotta like Pantoja by decision, but I would be very careful if you're betting this fight. Do not lay heavy on the favorite. Be careful with your dollars. Don't put it in a parlay. Don't bet any money you can't afford to lose because those are some heavy, fast hands coming at you, and it could he as a hittable guy. This might be a really dangerous test.
Yeah. And if we're being honest, both of them are hittable dudes.
Yes.
If you watch both fights, if you've seen both siders, or if you go and watch his previous Rising fights and you watch Pantoja's previous fights in the UFC, both of them are hittable guys. They both get hit, but they both have chins. I think that if you're getting into a phone booth, if you're fighting inside of a phone booth and you want to stand and bang and you point to the center of the metal, the center of the octagon, and you pull a Max Holloway and you're standing there and you slanging and banging, I feel, I would say I feel pretty confident that Asakura kind of comes out of that as the victor because he's shown that, hey, all he needs is one shot.
Mhm.
I think of the two, I think Asakura is the stronger striker. But when it goes to the ground, I think Pantoja has the edge, like we said. Cardio has the better grappling from what we've seen,
Mhm.
And I think that I feel bad for can't draw the name off the top of my head. The guy there was a guy who fought in one of his who was a former Bellator champion. Man, what was his name? I think Juan Archuleta. I think I'm not sure, but there was a fight where he did go against a wrestler, and they shot in, they tried to get the takedown, they got the guillotine, and they had it in what looked like pretty deep, but he ended up being able to use enough ground defense and submission defense to get out of it, and then in the fight with the when Buddy went for a takedown to use a knee to go for the finish and end the night, which was crazy. So even though Pantoja has the advantage in the grappling, I wouldn't say just getting in there and just going for a takedown, because you could catch. He's got powerful knees where it could be a Masvidal versus Askren moment. He said he's coming into have a highlight reel, one of those legendary knockout reels. Pantoja, as we know, is very well rounded. And very durable, very tough chin, very good submissions, good grappling, and I think he's overall very well rounded. So I want to say Asakura wins by finish, but that could just be me. But I do think that it's gonna be Asakura's definitely his hardest fight to this moment, up to this moment in time. And I do think this is Pantoja's toughest fight as well, or it's gonna be the very big. It's probably the biggest one so far. If we're taking into account his previous rise and stuff, but this could be this is a history making moment, a very big moment that could send Asakura to the sky. You know what I mean? As far as superstardom, you knock out a very good champion in your very first fight, in your maiden voyage into the UFC, in the first round, because he has a history of knocking people out in the first round. Oh, you're off to superstardom, right? But this is also a very big moment for Pantoja as well, where Pantoja, this is what would be his third or fourth title defense, and he's already beaten 9 of the top 10 guys. So it's what do you do from there? I feel like once he does that, I think it's fair to say that you put him in the conversation of one of the best flyweights. If he beats Asakura and now you have 4 title defenses, I think that puts you in the conversation of hey, one of the best flyweights. I think he's very underrated. I think Pantoja is underrated just because he's more of a quieter guy. He doesn't do a whole lot of talking. So I think sometimes when people if you see Pantoja on a card, you might be like, oh, okay, this seems okay. Or you may not know him just because he's not super loud and very extroverted and oh man, cutting promos and stuff like that. But this is as tough as they come.
Yeah.
Against.
And it's really been a long kind of road for Pantoja, just because he seems to have taken a step just in the last couple of years. It's when he first got into the UFC, he was, win a couple, drop one, win a couple, drop one type of guy. He lost a decision to Davison Figueiredo. He lost a decision to Askar Askarov. And then after that last loss, he seems to have just turned a corner and become this kind of fully realized version of himself that he is today in terms of physically the finish and the pursuit, and definitely a guy who I think proves that kind of idea that once you get the belt, you kind of enter your peak confidence and your peak of your powers. That belt adds another 10% to you.
Yeah, and also Pantoja's story is great. You know what I mean? To go from being an Uber driver to being UFC champion, man, that's a come up story for the ages. even just like that moment he had at the press conference after he won the belt, when he was talking about like how his mom raised him and his siblings by herself, and then Buddy was out here, then came to the U.S. and was an Uber driver, and then fought his way up to becoming a champion, and then going on a really great run, as champion, is beating some of the best. Like we said, Brandon Moreno, Roy Val, Usyk. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
These are all top flyweight people. All three of them. Like Brandon Moreno, former champion. Brandon Royval, someone who has a very serious potential to become a champion, and Paul Usyk, who a lot of people was kind of like discounting, but has a lot of skill. So this could be a big moment for him as well. And like also like his story is great, and I am a fan of Pantoja. And I would say but I think for me, I would just like to see, even like this has been like since like middle school, high school. I've always wanted to see. I was like, at some point, I would like to see like Japan get its first UFC champion. That would be amazing.
Mhm.
Uh, but I like both fighters. I would like to. I'm a fan of both. I'm a fan of both fighters. I like both fighters. Uh, I think it's 50-50. It could go either way, but like if I were to say, I think maybe 70-30, 60-40 Asakura. But I think if I'm being realistic, I think it's more of like 50-50. They do have Asakura Kai as the underdog,
Mhm.
as a slight underdog to Pantoja for obvious reasons. He's, Pantoja's a battle tested veteran and champion against a megastar from another organization. You're like, okay, how does he stack up against the best of the best? So we'll see that Saturday. It's gonna be an exciting main event because again, both of them 18 finishes, 16 finishes, 18 finishes for Pantoja, 16 finishes for Asakura Kai. I think it's gonna be exciting. And then the co-main event, speaking of people who be finishing and people who begin getting it done, we have the Nomad, Shavkat Rakhmonov. The dude I've against, before I even get into the intros, against the 15-0 Ian the Future Gary. Hey, what did I say? Since I've probably been one of the first supporters of Shavkat Rakhmonov before he kind of reached mainstream people. We've been talking about it. I've been uh hitting the Shavkat drum, been supporting, been like rallying for him and support being a fan since like he was on the early prelims, since like 2021. I've been telling people, I was like, man, this dude Shavkat. During Shavkat's debut, I was like, after I seen his debut, I was like, yo, this dude is legit. Like, I think he's gonna be a future champion. We've talked about this. I was like, man, I think he's really that guy. I think he's gonna be that dude at welterweight, and now he's here. Just in case you don't know him, I think it's fair to say he is the face of Kazakh MMA. I think he's the face of MMA in his home country of Kazakhstan. 18 finishes, all by finish. 18 men have tried, 18 men have failed. He has a 100% finish rate. 9 knockouts, 9 submissions. That is unheard of, to be undefeated and you finish everybody. This is video game stuff we're talking about here. He has good striking. He has good cardio. He has good grappling, good submissions. He's finished people who are not known to be finished. He's the first person to ever finish Wonder Boy. First person, if I'm not mistaken, to first finish what was Jeff Neal? Yeah, Jeff Neal.
That sounds right. Let me double
Yeah.
check. Yeah, he subbed Jeff Neal and Neil
Yep.
Magny.
That it wasn't even like a full rear naked choke. He was standing beside him and was just like, yeah. But again, against the future Ian Gary, a dude with really good striker, right? Both fighters have really good fight IQ. Both are good strikers. Obviously, both of them are undefeated. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this one is the kickoff of, in my opinion at least, the kind of one of the themes of this card to me is uh, kind of one-sided matchmaking. Uh, I know that in this particular instance, it's not set up in any kind of way. It's just the way that it works out at the top of the division. But I mean, the odds on this fight are, according to ESPN at least, are Shavkat is a minus 400 favorite, Ian Gary plus 300. Uh, I just think that it's one of the fights that's going to show that it is as one-sided as the betting odds are making it look. I don't think this will be particularly close because we've seen in past fights against strikers, it's Ian Gary has enough grappling where if you're not well versed, he can get on top of you and he can stall and he can win rounds that way in a very smart fight. He can definitely do that. And if you're not well versed in the striking, he definitely is a complicated and sneaky enough striker that he can really do some things when he puts his mind to it and he lets it fly. Uh, I just think Shavkat's better than him at everything. I think that Shavkat is a heavier hitter. I think Shavkat has pretty clean defense when he's not doing a total disrespect style like we've seen him do in the past. Like the only times where I've ever been worried for Shavkat in a fight was when he's clearly not worried about what's happening coming back at him. He's just decided that he's going to go in the fight and he just does it. His grappling is way above Ian Gary's, even though I know Ian Gary will say he's been working on it and he's been training in Brazil and all that stuff. But the type of grappling and strength that Shavkat has at this weight class, I don't think that you're going to be making up that gulf unless you're really a specialist. And Ian Gary is not a specialist. So I think that this gets done pretty quickly. I think at most, maybe second round. I like Shavkat for. Here's the thing. I don't know. Actually, let me check because I know he likes to keep it balanced between TKOs and stuff because he had a perfectly even record before. So I'll say this one ends up on the KO side to make it 9 KOs and 10 subs for his 19-0 record. I think that he's going to look scary. I think after this fight, the legacy of this fight will be Shavkat is very scary, and he'll be the overwhelming favorite when he faces Bilal Muhammad for the title.
I agree. You know, as a day one fan, day one supporter of day one fan of of the Nomad of Shavkat, I think it's 0 to 100%. I think it's 100% chance Shavkat's gonna win. And if I had to really be objective, maybe 80-20, 80-20 Shavkat. I think that while Ian Gary's a very smart fighter, right? He knows how to win. Sometimes we've seen him like fight not to lose rather than fight to win. But he knows, he's not undefeated for no reason. When he wants to be, he's a very good fighter, very good striker, very good mixed martial artist. However, when you put him against someone like Shavkat, when he fights, he has one goal in mind: to win. I mean, everyone has the goal to win, but like we've mentioned with Ian Gary, sometimes we'll see him, because he is a smart fighter, we've seen him try to fight not to lose, and in some cases we've seen him fight to win. Like, just go for it. Shavkat, that's all he does is go for the finish. He's also a very smart fighter. He also is very good at adapting to a fight, adapting to his opponent. And I think that Shavkat is better in every category that the fight could go. I think Shafkat has better striking. I think he has better submissions. I think he has better grappling. And Ian did put out the video of them training back in the day. And I think, some people say he broke the rule of like not talking about what goes on in the practice room. But even Shafkat said that the video shows Ian Gary getting the better of Shafkat in that sparring session. But again, it's sparring.
Mm.
But Shafkat said in one of his interviews that if he'd have released the full video, you would have seen that, yes, he was getting the better of Shafkat in that moment, but Shafkat ends up submitting him in the video, but that part wasn't released. So it goes to show you, like, I think that both men have a pretty good idea of who's going to win.
Yeah. And may I
Whether
also
they say
say,
it or not.
it seems like some people, because Ian Gary's done a good job promotionally associating himself with Charles Oliveira this week, some people have, for whatever reason, taken that as a sign to swing back and just say, you know what, Ian Gary's all right because he's next to a really likable guy who's going to be in this corner. Uh, I I'm not on that train at all. Releasing footage of of sparring of a gym you used to be at and who helped you out, uh, I think is really scummy and is another example of why Ian Gary has been bouncing from gym to gym to gym. You know, Miami to Birmingham, to now Brazil, and I would not be shocked at all if after this loss, he's somehow off again to a different camp. It's I think when we look back at Ian Gary's career, I know we're still early. He's 27. He still has plenty of time to correct course. But as of right now, from what I'm seeing, I think when we look back at Ian Gary's career, it's going to be a question of wasted talent and kind of what not to do with your young prospect.
Yeah, I think that Ian Gary is someone who has a very peculiar position in the sport right now. All right. Or they're like in the beginning. As you know, as I am a big supporter of Shafkat and a number of other fighters. Shafkat, Natalia Silva, Alex Grasso, Cyril, all Kaya Sakura, Izzy, all these guys or gals. I was a big supporter of. I was on the team Ian Gary in the beginning when he first came to the UFC. I was like, this dude feels like something special. I think he's a good striker. He's got good footwork. He's got this and that. And then kind of towards as his career progressed in the UFC, I kind of fell off the bandwagon and kind of fell off Team Gary just because while as a fighter, a lot of potential to be a champion. He is a great fighter. He does have good fight IQ. I think a lot of his outside the UFC stuff is what kind of can rub fans the wrong way. I think that him and Bo Nickel are in a situation where they haven't figured out whether they want to be cheered or booed yet. And I think that when you are trying to play both sides of the fence, there is a sense of disingenuousness that comes off from that where people don't know how to feel about you. So if you play the part of the villain and try to play the part of the hero of the face, if you play the part of the heel and the face, both sides end up disliking you because it's like, okay, I think the first part after the whole fighting star, as far as, building your brand and building your promotion, you're promoting you yourself, right? You need to figure out whether you want to be booed or cheered. Mm-hmm. And once you figure that baseline part of it, the fans will decide, hey, you're cool in my book, or you're not cool, or whatever it is, or you're a cool heel, a cool face, a lame heel, a lame face. You know what I mean? Like they can feel that, right?
Mhm.
You'll see like Chael was a cool heel, right? He does not mind getting booed, and eventually people was just like, man, you did this and that.
Mhm.
Wonder Boy is a cool face, a cool baby face. He is as face as they come. He is just a good dude. Anybody, I don't know a person who doesn't like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Dude's top tier, the nicest dude in the UFC. People really like people. Brandon Moreno is another really cool face, baby face. A lot of people love Brandon Moreno. They love Tai Tuivasa. They love Darius. You know what I mean? They get the cheers. They enjoy being cheered. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But also, if you were fine with getting booed, if you're gonna like, you're the heel, you're gonna be like Kobe Covington or like, I know Joaquin Buckley sometimes ends up being the heel in some cases, but he's does it well wherever. Izzy is another really example of a cool face, right? Like cool baby face. People love Izzy, but you got to choose a side. You should figure out what you want to do. And I think that when you're trying to play both sides of the field, people just kind of like rubs people the wrong way.
Mhm.
And while I'm not a fan of releasing training footage, and it kind of like puts me further onto the like, I think this is the kind of the stuff that kind of fell off on. But he's got a lot of other stuff going on. But I think that when I was watching the press conference, some of the stuff Ian Gary says is eye roll, makes you want to eye roll. But this one, it wasn't like I think he did a good job in the press conference. I will give him that. Like I think uh it wasn't insufferable. Where I was kind of like, this dude is just chatting. He did one of the parts that I will give him credit on is that like halfway through the press conference, he started speaking in Portuguese, which I was impressed about. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, wow. They were like, hey, you got Charles Oliveira in your corner. You got Deo Lima in your corner. He was like, do you want it in English or Portuguese? And I was just like, oh, God, okay. And then he actually did start speaking Portuguese. And I was like, oh, wow. That's actually, I'm not going to lie, even though I'm still not a fan, that was impressive.
I mean, he has been living in Brazil now for at least a year,
I
maybe
think maybe,
more.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you're gonna pick up the language. I mean, it's you know pretty basic stuff. I mean, people say the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in it. So
Yeah.
it's if you're ever gonna learn it, you're gonna force yourself to.
Yeah, and I think he's trying to, he wants to have Charles Oliveira in his corner. I feel like Charles is a cool face, right? Like everybody
Mm.
loves Charles Oliveira, and I think he's trying. I don't know if he's trying to be on more of a. I wasn't sure, like watching it, if he's finally decided whether he wants to be a good guy or a bad guy to get cheers or boos. If he was like, oh, this is my attempt in going fully face instead of being like, hey, I'm a villain, but also I'm the villain and the victim, or like hero and the villain. You know what I mean? Protagonist and antagonist. So I feel like he's a personality that just rubs people the wrong way. So I think that yeah, I can understand that why you're not a fan. I'm honestly not a fan either. But I think if he beats Shafkat, oh, I think he can definitely beat Palal. You know what I mean? And I think
I mean,
I think if he beats Shafkat, it really doesn't matter how we feel about him or how people feel about him in general, whether you love him or hate him. He's gonna fight for the belt, and chances are he will win the belt if he. And I think if you get a dazzling win, dazzling finish, I think a lot of people will forget all the outside shenanigans that comes along with Ian Gary.
yeah,
But
I agree. It's if he starts winning, then people will forget about it. But if he loses, it will come back. I will also say, as a final point on it, if he manages to beat Shavkat, he should get a roll of scratch-off lottery tickets on his way to the airport because that would be one of the luckiest wins of all time, in my opinion.
oh, Absolutely. Hey, don't get me wrong. I'm pulling for Shavkat to win, and I think Shavkat's gonna win. It's not even I think. I know Shavkat's gonna win.
Yeah,
18 men
I
have
feel
tried,
very
18 men
confident.
have failed. Huh?
I feel very confident.
Same. I feel fairly confident in like Shavkat and like it going so far, going Asakura Kai, Shavkat Rakhmonov. And then it kind of leads into our next fight. Mr. Bongaman himself, the pride of Paris, the Prince of Paris, French super, former interim heavyweight champion. The list of accolades go on and on. One of the face of French MMA, Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. Uh, before I get into it, tell me, what are you feeling for this fight? Like, who do you have winning, and what general thoughts?
Yeah, so this is the continuation of I think the main event itself is close, but this is another one that uh the betting odds are the same as the last fight, minus 400 and plus 300. So Cyril Gane's a big favorite and a deserved favorite, in my opinion. The only thing that gives me even slight pause is just like you're saying, the since we've last seen him in the octagon, he's gone on tour doing TV and movies and showing up
Modeling.
and making appearances at the Olympics and doing all this stuff. So my only kind of question with it is what has he been able to do since then? It's in whatever time he's had, what has he been able to improve? I'm not totally sure on that, which is the question mark that gives me pause on this because I do like Volkov. I think Volkov's very talented. I think Volkov has a unique build because he's so tall and skill set. He's a really good athlete for his size. He's very coordinated. Uh, it's all his kicks and everything. He's a very fluid mover for a guy who's like 6'7". I think 6'7".
Tall
Two
dude.
hundred 254
Big
pounds
boy.
and an 80-inch reach. It's the guy's got a lot of physical tools, and he's shown that he knows how to use them. And I think that he's shown in his last few fights the ability to make adjustments in fights and do different things and show a different side of himself. And he's even getting better at speaking English and talking to the media and doing these things that really make me hopeful of okay, maybe he could really present a test. But I I just can't bring myself to pick him because this fight already happened and Gon won pretty easily. So I think that there's a path for Volkov, I think, to make this very close. But even him making it close, can I convince myself that he's going to win? I can't see him finishing Gon, so I'm going to end up at no. I think Cyril Gon wins. I think it might be by decision because I think their last one was by decision. I have to check that.
Yep. A decision win for Cyril.
Yeah. So I'll go with a repeat. I think this one has the potential to be a lot closer. Um, but yeah, I think Gon's talent is just too much. So even if I have questions on how much work he's put in the last 18 months or whatever it's been, uh, I just gotta think he's gonna show up. It's not a huge pressure moment. It's a fight he's already won before. I like him by decision. What do you think about it?
Before that, can we talk about him? Yeah, like you said, you talk about him doing the combing his hair while he's beating the dude up. And his last fight, he is winning the fight, and then his corner gives him a comb to like comb his hair, make sure it looks nice while he's like piecing up a dude. One of the moments that live rent free in my head. He was talking about him connecting with the fans and really kind of working on this like the personal brand. One of the memorable moments of him just being like, oh yeah, pop, 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 pop. Forget why you're giving me this water. Hey, make sure the swoop looks nice. As with that being said, yes, like you said, 6'7", big dude, big boy, 6'7", got really good kickboxing. He is kind of starting to piece things together, and he has been on a streak. He's looking good. He's striking. He's fighting well. I think that like him learning more English and getting connected with the fans is also really dope. The moment that like everyone remembers his like cornerman being like, "Hey, while you're winning, let me like go mirrors. So it looks nice when you win." Uh, those are all really dope things. But as we've talked before, we already know there are certain fighters when they're on a card. There's a handful of fighters that when they're on the card, no matter who they're going against, I'm going for them. Usually my day ones. And those include Max Holloway. If he's on a card, I'm watching. No matter what's going on. No matter who he's going against. I'm watching. My girl, Alexa Grasso, if she's on a card, no matter who's it's against, no matter what time of the evening or night or day it is, it could be one of those 3 a.m. cards, and I will stay up to watch her fight. Cyril Gahn, another day one, another one of my day ones. If he's on the fight card, whether it's early prelims, main event, against whoever and whenever, I'm watching. Those are some of my top threes. We got a whole list. I'm not going to go through the whole list, an exhaustive list, right? But, for those people like Tatsuro Taira, all those guys, those people, Grasso, Holloway, Gahn, I'm watching it. They could have lost 6 fights in a row, and I'm still going to watch. I'm still going to support. I'm going to be like, they got this. Even if they're champion, even if it's 3 a.m., I'm watching. That being said, Cyril Gahn has had a phenomenal run in the UFC so far. Has had a crazy run so far. Unusual, right? Starts MMA in 2018. 2019, he's in the UFC. 2020, he's masterclassing the entire heavyweight division. Goes undefeated. Goes on to fight Derek Lewis for an interim heavyweight championship. Throws like 130 strikes within the span of like 10 minutes. 2 rounds, maybe a beginning of a third, and only gets hit twice. Becomes France's first interim champion. Goes on 2021 to take on the strongest UFC heavyweight of all time, Francis, and was winning the fight when it in the beginning rounds when it was just striking until Francis was like, "Oh, Uno reverse, I got wrestling now," right? When Cyril went for the high kick and it turned, and then Francis was able to hold him down with the wrestling. Then goes on to face the greatest fighter of all time, John Jones. Then goes on to fight Spivak in Paris, sells out the core arena twice, to sell out your home country's stadium arena. To headline your own, to fight in your hometown and headline twice and sell out the arena. Already super impressive. Has Spivak. People was like, oh, is he going to get humbled in his own city? Nah. He comes through, beats him, gets to show up and represent during the Paris Olympics, gets to do Netflix, gets to do modeling, gets to do on TV, gets to do a lot of media stuff, right? He's been on a really like crazy run so far. As far as the striking goes, in the fight, Cyril won the fight by using some of his wrestling, implementing his wrestling into the fight. That's kind of what helped him win the fight, right? You would imagine, I think anyone would imagine that, like, based on the Francis fight, based on the John Jones fight, anyone with a brain is going to try to make Cyril wrestle because they think, oh, that's the key, right? That's the key to win. Spivak thought that because, he was a judo boxing guy and he tried. Cyril put them paws on him and said, pop, pop, pop. He said, pop, 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 pop. leading to Cyril being dominant in that. So I imagine Volkov is going to try to wrestle with him, try to like make him use that, try to exploit that weakness. But Cyril's another very high IQ fighter, phenomenal striker. I do think Cyril wins this. There's no doubt in my mind. There's zero in my mind actually that Cyril doesn't just clear Volkov this time. Go on and fight Tom Aspinall, become a two-time interim champion, becomes champion. Hey, it's gonna be a great time. France gets their first undisputed champion. That's my prediction. He goes on, beats Volkov. I think he gets the finish this time. I say second round finish. Goes on to fight Tom Aspinall, beats him, becomes two-time interim champion, goes on to become a champion. France gets his first undisputed champion, heavyweight champion. That is my prediction. That is what I think. We've seen this fight before, like you said. Cyril won, and in impressive fashion, I would say. So we've kind of already seen this. We've already kind of talked about this in the past about when you put the heavyweight division against Tom and Cyril, there's not a lot of fights, if any, that we don't see Cyril or Tom not winning against. You know what I mean? Like we see Tom and Cyril winning pretty much against every fight in the heavyweight division right now, outside of each other. So I think, again, like you said, one-sided. I think it's 100%. There's no doubt in my mind Cyril doesn't win this. That is my prediction. TKO by strikes.
Oh, you think he finishes this time?
Oh, actually, absolutely. I think he finishes it.
Okay.
I think that as good as a coach as Fernando, as good as of a coach as Fernando Lopez is, as good as of a team as the MMA Factory is, as good of a fighter as Cyril Gane is. Cyril is great. I think that they would have already covered up that weakness of the wrestling. We saw that in the Spivak fight. Spivak, who's known as the polar bear, known as, you know, being a good grappler, good judo practitioner, Cyril was able to shut down those takedown defenses. So I think that Cyril would be able to like shut down any attempts by Volkov to try to take him down, because we all know that's gonna be everybody's goal, is to try to take Cyril to the ground and make him fight off his back. They would have already practiced that a lot. And I think when you're looking at striking, Cyril is the better fighter of the two, better striker of the two. Or kickboxers, both of them are strikers. Cyril's got the footwork advantage, he's got the speed advantage, and I think he has the power. Like, I think he has the better volume. And I also think he's the harder striker. I mean, Cyril's not known for knocking people out, but I think he has the power advantage in that particular fight.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. It's I have gone by decision, but it's a finish would be electric and would really be an interesting subplot in the heavyweight division.
Oh,
But
yeah.
let's move down one more on the main card. Another overwhelming favorite. I still don't know why this is on the main card. Uh, it's really puzzling. Minus 950 Bryce Mitchell, plus 550 Crone Gracie. Uh, Bryce Mitchell, by any means he wants, in my opinion. The submission is easily on the table. I know, like, oh, Crone Gracie is obviously very good at jiu-jitsu. Yeah, but, you know, it's after he gets hit a few times, your defense isn't going to be as good. You know, that's just the nature of the beast. Uh, Bryce has gotten twisters in the UFC, and those were against guys who were defending them initially very well, but punched them in the face a few times, and suddenly, oh, the submission's open now. It's, you know, so I think, I don't know if Bryce is in like a make a statement mode in terms of going out there and hunting a submission, but if he is, I think it'll be there for him. If not, I could easily see a KO or TKO. because he has shown much better striking than Kron Gracie has. I think you could say that about just about anybody on the UFC roster. Uh, yeah, I'm puzzled as to why this is on the main card, but pretty easy choice here.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bryce Mitchell wins this fight. I think what we've seen of Kron Gracie so far hasn't been spectacular, or it hasn't impressed me so far, right? Like, you see Kron Gracie, it's the Gracie name, he's going to be great at jiu-jitsu. But I think the performances we've seen so far haven't been the best, or been the best that he probably could be. And Bryce Mitchell is also another really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's a really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. We know he has good, fairly good striking, good jiu-jitsu. I think he's coming off that Josh Emmett loss, that super vicious knockout loss from Josh Emmett. So I think he's going to come into this fight with something to prove and wanting to make a statement. So I'd say Bryce Mitchell for the win. Maybe second, third round.
Not a lot of analysis needed on that one. We can go ahead to the last one on the main card that should be a lot of fun and is actually a close fight by odds.
Yep.
Nate the Train Landwehr minus 130, Doo-Hoo Choi Korean Superboy plus 110.
Paul Wall, baby. Like Nate, Nate Landwehr, man. Yo, I gotta go for Nate Landwehr, man. This dude is I enjoy watching him fight. He's dope. I enjoy the energy he brings to. I think it's gonna be a fun I think it's gonna be a fun fight. I think it's gonna be an exciting fight between him and Superboy. They both come to for the finish. They both have coming to have exciting fights. I think Nate Landwehr gets it done by knockout. And I feel like, is it me or does he sound like Paul Wall, or like kind of like remind you of Paul Wall, like maybe just the look or like the sound of like the voice? You know what I mean? Like I feel like, is it just me or do you think so too?
I could see it a little bit. It's definitely some of that same flavor. It's Nate the Train's a Tennessee guy. Paul Wall, I'm pretty sure, is a Texas guy. But it's similar kind of accents, similar kind of culturally a little bit. Some definite cultural southern overlap between Tennessee and Texas.
Yeah, because I enjoy anytime Nate the Train is fighting, and like anytime he shows up, it's an exciting fight. His mic work is fun too. Like I think he's good on the mic. He's good in the fight. Uh, Superboy is also another exciting fighter. I think it's gonna be a good fight. I think it's a very I think it could be 50-50, but I'm gonna give it maybe 60-40 for Nate the Train.
Yeah, it should be one of the more exciting fights of the night for sure. Definitely feels like a first at most second round kind of fight, and it really just depend on who lands their shot first. Uh, I'm also with Nate the Train by KO. I'll go second round. I just think the Korean military service for Doo-Hoo Choi probably took away some of his prime years where we could have seen him take another step or really have something in the UFC. Unfortunately, losing 2 years of your prime just isn't really how to keep a professional career going, whether it's through absence or injury or something that's much more, positive as military service. It's but just without keeping your level and always pushing it right in those prime years, it seems like maybe you you lose a step, and it's hard to regain that footing. So I'm with you, Nate the Train. TKO second round.
All right. We both got Nate the Train. I think so far we all have the it's kind of we're both aligned on our choices. We both got Kaya Sakura, we got Shafkat, we got
Well, no, we're
Cyril,
different
we
on that
got
one. We're
second.
different on that one. I got
Oh, really? Which one?
Pantoja by decision.
Oh, okay, so yeah, we're similar on all of them except for the main event. So you got Pantoja, I got Asakura Kai, we both got Shafkat, we both got Cyril, we both got Bryce, we both got Nate Landwehr. I think that I think that both of them show up and have a crazy fight. I think Nate the Train puts on for Tennessee, starts off the main event right, gets the crowd hype, gets the crowd going, gets the knockout. I think it's gonna be a fun fight. I think that both of them are gonna come through and just be batting at 1,000 because Dual Toy is cool, Nate Landwehr is cool. Here for the fights, here for the prelims as we roll into it because we got another big fight coming up. We got Dominic Reyes versus Anthony Smith. Reyes, who had a very close fight with John Jones. Half the people said John Jones won, half the people said Dominic Reyes won. He was on a four fight loss streak, and then was able to break the loss streak, and get a big win. Now he's trying to rebuild himself up back to the title and get another chance at the belt. We got Anthony Smith, a tested, uh, just dope veteran of the game. Great on the commentary, great on the podcast stuff, great at the fights. I think he's very underrated. Me personally, I think he has a chance to still win the belt, but I know that opinion isn't shared by many. But I think that when I think as a fan, I want to say I think Anthony Smith gets it done, right?
Hmm.
I think that Anthony Smith, if I don't know what Anthony Smith we're gonna get, but if we get, because certain fights, Anthony Smith looks like a world beater, right?
Hmm.
He will come in and he just looks like he's on fire, right? Like the fight against Ryan Spann, the fight he had against that one up and coming Brazilian dude. My apologies, forget the name. I can't remember the name at the moment, but he had a really big submission win against him. Uh, that run he was on when he originally went to go fight John Jones. I think that when he puts it on and he shows up and he shows out, he's there. You know what I mean? He has had some inconsistencies over the thing, and I think he would also agree that like he's had some inconsistency where like he'll be on a good one and then kind of fall and then like drop one and then win and drop one. And so it's like some of the fights he should be winning, he's not. But like when he does lock in and he is there, he looks like he could be a champion. And I want to, as a fan, feel that that's possible. I want to believe that that's possible. And I think it is. And I think if he beats Reyes, that really kind of like puts him in position to either be one fight away from fighting Pereira, or maybe that is what he needs to get to fight Pereira.
Yeah, I mean, I'm firmly in the camp that there's no Anthony Smith as champion story run for us here. But I will join you for this fight. For this reason, Dominic Reyes was on a massive losing streak. Uh, he beat Dustin Jacoby by first round KO, and Dustin Jacoby uh, does implore that kind of stand and bang style, uh, and he is on a pretty poor run his last 5 fights also. So I think that a lot of people have jumped the gun with Dominic Reyes, and everybody really wants this to work out for him. because he had that really high so early in his career, and it feels like everything's just kind of gone wrong for him since then. So I know everybody wants to believe he's back. I just don't think so. I, I don't think that the Dominic Reyes fairy tale is real. I think Anthony Smith, while not a championship contender anymore, is still a very solid veteran who is still, he's not half in, half out as much as he's doing all these other things. I think his mind is still firmly in the fight game. I don't think he'd be fighting if he was half in, half out. So I'm going to say Anthony Smith, who, by the way, is only 2 years older than Dominic Reyes. I know it feels like they're very different in era and age almost, but they're of the same generation, and I think Anthony Smith's just better. So I'll take Anthony Smith. Does he get a finish?
I think so. But this is all feelings, no facts.
He might, because in that losing streak, Dominic Reyes did lose by KO TKO 3 times in a row. It was to Blachowicz, Prochazka, and Span, which, no shame, but you know what? I'll go Anthony Smith by submission in
That's what
round
I say.
number 2. Let's say in the second. Anthony Smith
Oh wow,
gets
we actually are aligned on that.
yeah. Anthony Smith gets a nice combo. Maybe he hurts him to the body or something like that, or gets gets a kick to the body, maybe something like that, and then he locks in a rear naked choke, and he has a nice moment on the mic, but yeah, we'll be aligned on this one, but moving forward in the next matchup, I doubt it.
Hey, I've been telling you, like, and also I feel like outside of fighting, Anthony Smith, like, great on I think the commentary.
Yes.
Does a really great job on the commentary.
Yes.
I think that interviews is great. When he's really locked in, he could be a great fighter. I think he's good. I really do think, again, this is all feelings, no facts. He has a chance. I think he still can be a championship contender. I think he can still bring it home, have the storybook finish. I think there's still a chance.
I admire your optimism and I celebrate it. I do not share it, unfortunately.
You know me, always the optimist.
Yeah.
But bring us into the next fight.
Okay. So I briefly want to touch on it because we're going to touch on all the other ones, and I don't want to just leave it out and not address it. Vicente Luque is fighting Themba Gorimbo.
Yeah, Timber Grimbo.
It is significant. Vicente Luque, for whatever reason, even though he's on a bad run, is still ranked over there at welterweight. But I have no complex thoughts on this fight because I'm very much out on Luque as an experience. And so I think Gorimbo will win, probably. I think that there's so many more fights on this card in particular that have a lot more meaning to their weight class. I think that this is a very much back end of the welterweight division type of clash, which may not ever really mean anything because I think Luque is really, for whatever reason, on the downslope.
You know, for me, I think this is a good fight. I like this fight. I'm all in on Themba Gorimbo. Like, I have him all chips in. I feel I'm 100% on on choosing Themba Gorimbo. I think he wins by finish.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a second round finish.
Mhm.
I his story is pretty dope. Getting where he started at to where he is now, and then having the chance to like the run in with The Rock, and The Rock is like, if I'm not mistaken, he is the only fighter sponsored by The Rock, or if not sponsored by The Rock had that really cool moment and was like, hey, you don't have to like live in the gym, or got you set him up, bought him a house and everything. Got to hear his story, and now he's like chasing his dream when other people didn't think it was possible for him to make it to this point, and now he's like making a name for himself. He's making a name for, as Gambit says. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Uh, so it's a good story to get behind. Seems like a good dude. Seems like a cool dude. I'm pulling for him to like, get the win, get a really cool finish, get a good, really good win, a good finish up against a tough opponent, and move his way up the welterweight division. So I'm pulling for him, rooting for him.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a nice setup spot for him, in my opinion, from the UFC. So it's I'll join you, but I'll go Garimbo by finishing the first instead of the second. I'm really. It's not that I'm not a fan of Luke. I'm just out on this whole Luke experience. In my opinion, something's gone wrong. I don't know what it is. I don't have enough information to investigate, but something in the Luke waters has soured for me, and I don't know why or what it is, but this feels like a setup spot for Garimbo, and I think he's gonna, step up to the plate, call his shot like Babe Ruth, and knock it out of the park.
And which leads us to the next one. Aljamain Funk Master Sterling, Aljo, versus Mosfar Evalive. Evalive. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. 18
I
and
think we got
0.
close.
Yeah. 18 and 0. Same as Shafkat, but someone who doesn't get as much of the same love or admiration that Shafkat does, even though they have the same record, against former champ Aljo. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? How you feeling? What's your thought? What are you thinking about? All right, do you have a strong favorite? Do you have a breakdown?
Well, I would like to start off with a. This should be on the pay per view, not the Bryce Mitchell fight. Uh, like this makes no sense. Aljo is a former champion who is a significant name in the sport for sure. Uh, I understand he may not be able to sell a pay per view by himself in terms of that name value, but he's definitely someone all the fans know. It's if you showed them a picture of him, they know who he is. He's been in a lot of high profile spots, and a lot of big storylines have happened with him involved. So, it's he was the B side the night that Sean O'Malley won the title. He was part of that whole Piotr Jan controversy that saw him get the title by forfeit. That was a massive, talking point and meme around the UFC universe for a really long time.
And
So
then he beat.
yeah, and then he came back to beat Piotr Jan, and really, he's become a big character in the lighter weight classes. He's not the same value uh, as an Alex Pereira or a Sean O'Malley or
I'm back.
some of these guys who have more independent fan bases, but he's still a very significant character in the upfront, in your face memo, like drama sphere of the UFC. He's still very much a main kind of character who the fans will know, even if they're not the reason that they're gonna go buy a pay per view necessarily, but they definitely know him. He has a name value. And so whereas the guy he's fighting doesn't necessarily, but you would think former champion would be enough to be on the main card on the pay per view. But uh, I will say this for Movsar, I'm sure he's very good, but he appears to be a decision machine, which is why I can't remember a single one of his fights. Every single UFC fight he's ever had, he's won by decision. And he's beat some good guys here. It's Dan Ige, Diego Lopez, Arnold Allen. Uh, I can't remember any of the fights. I don't recall. Even, like I remember the fallout. Like I remember uh, more recently Diego Lopez telling Movsar that he wants that one back, that he wants to fight him again. And I remember when Arnold Allen lost. But if you ask me, hey, who beat Arnold Allen? The first thing I think of is Max Holloway. I don't remember the Movsar fight. So Movsar is, he must be just one of those like lay and pray type dudes, I'm guessing, because I can't remember a single one of his fights, and that's a major problem. Uh, but in this fight, this might not be a problem, because if you try and engage the grappling with Aljamain Sterling, you are going to be in for a rough night, because his jiu-jitsu and his submissions are quick and they are secure. He is a very talented guy, and that often gets overlooked because of the drama stuff that made him a main character in the kind of UFC universe. It's people forget just how good of a grappler he can be, and some of the submissions that he's put on very talented grapplers in the past. So I like Aljo by submission. That is both a head pick and also very much a heart pick, because I don't want to see a former champion who could have a really interesting storyline brewing here at this new weight class get beat by a guy whose fights I can't remember for the life of me.
I agree. I think that Aljo's fight against Mosfar should be just in just in our opinion. I think this feels like opening of a main card fight. I think that I think you could easily switch out Bryce and Kron Gracie for Aljo fight. Mosfar is eight. It's a big fight. It's an important fight. Mosfar is 18-0. Aljo is a former champion who came off a really impressive performance against Calvin Cater. I believe at 300 it was, where
Yes.
he literally hit Batista's finisher on Calvin Cater against Cage. When have you seen someone go for a full WWE move in the middle of a match and still win? Like, that's crazy. Also, Aljo's wrestling really good. His submissions really good. I think that, like you said, he's a household name that a lot of people know. A lot of MMA fans know. He has been a part of a lot. He's been connected to a lot of big moments. I think he should be the opener of the main card, or at least I understand what, like at least the co-main for the prelims. You know what I mean? The or even maybe even like the main event, like the featured prelim. I think that, like you said, there was the thing with Jan, the disqualification, and the comeback of him like beating Jan decisively, and then there was the stuff with Sean O'Malley, Rob stealing the jacket. You know, there is his resurgence against Calvin Cater.
Also, not to mention, by the way, just another interesting point, that like short-lived, it would appear, UFC show that they did, where they show behind the scenes at the UFC, which is increasingly looking like maybe wasn't a great idea. Uh, you know, that show moment was a huge moment for people in the community to see how Aljo, who has one loss in the last 6 years, and it's to Sean O'Malley, and people saw how he got pressured into taking that fight when he was definitely not 100% and probably shouldn't have taken that fight. With a little bit of hindsight, but even in the moment, you probably would have said, hey champ, maybe rest up a little bit before you take this challenge on. Uh, so and it's it's just a really interesting spot that I don't understand. And the idea that I saw that clip that Movsar put out there that, oh, we're on the prelims because Dana White hates you. I mean, he went out there. He was pressured to do it, but he definitely did go out there and fight Sean O'Malley when he definitely could have, took his ball and ran away. He didn't have to do that. Uh, and people are much more familiar with who Aljo is, and I think we'll be getting a lot more love from the crowd than Movsar will. So I think he's got that kind of flipped around in his mind as far as who Dana White and the matchmakers uh, aren't really thrilled about from an entertainment perspective.
Yeah, because I think in this fight, most far is definitely the in this is oh sorry, it said pause on myself. But in this in the rematch, I think not in the rematch, but in this fight, I do think Mozart has this kind of like backwards because I feel that Aljo is definitely the A side of this fight.
Mm-hmm.
And Mozart is like you had mentioned, it feels maybe even bad that I can't remember any of Mozart's fights either. It feels bad to say that, but I really there's most like how we've been talking about there's fights that you can trace back to everyone on this card, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Reyes. You can think about all the fights Reyes has had. The fights with Yuri, the fights with Jan, the fights with John. For Anthony Smith, it's the fights against that one Brazilian dude, John. Ryan Spann, Duho Choi. He's had some really good knockouts. Nate the Train, knockouts. There's stuff you remember from their fights. Cyril, Volkov, Shavkat, Ian Gary, love him or hate him. Kaya Asakura, and even though he's new, he's memorable. And Pantoja, all these fighters have moments where you remember their fights. They're memorable. You remember their moments, their fights, or just them as a person. Most far is in this position where I know he's fought in one of my favorites. Oh, it looks like it just resumed now. Is it
It's been going the whole time for me.
okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure. I wasn't sure if I should repeat everything I've been saying, but
No, I think we're good.
okay. Just in case. Hey, like there's the with Aljo being the A side, Mozart being the B side, there's moments you can remember from every person on this card. But I think that with Mozart, even though he's beaten up. Okay, I'm back. Okay.
Okay, I didn't pause. We're still
Hey.
rolling.
Okay, cool. Sorry, Wi-Fi not letting me be great out here. But yes, even though Mozart has beaten a lot of like fan favorites and a lot of our favorites, like Dan Ige, Diego Lopez, I can't remember any of those fights. And generally, when Dan Ige is in a fight or Diego Lopez in a fight, you remember. He cannot say I remember any of Mozart's fights. So
Yeah, I checked the stats on him, by
for
the
him to
way. He won them all by takedowns and control. So it's probably the reason none of us can remember anything is because it was really boring lay and pray stuff that got him positionally correct and smart fighting, but was not dominant in terms of damage and did not create a memory in the mind.
And that's the tough one too, because if that is the game he wants to play, I think Aljo is a very hard person to play that game with.
Yes.
Just because Aljo is such a good wrestler and has such good submissions that I think that's a dangerous game you want to play. You know what I mean? And I think Aljo will get the finish if that's how the fight will play out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, you get two wrestlers that are really good and it turns into a kickboxing match, which I still think Aljo has the advantage in. So I'm going all chips in 100% Aljo for the win. And I say it happens by submission, second round finish, rear naked choke. That's my.
I'm not going to pick the specific of the submission, but I'll join you in the submission. I'll go maybe first because I think that I don't know enough about Evelev to know his temperament, but I think maybe he'll dive in right in the first round, and while they're still dry, Aljo might catch it in a, let's say, guillotine. Yeah, he shoots, Aljo wraps up a guillotine, and we're on to the next one, which would have been the previous one. Randy Rude Boy Brown versus Brian the Butcher who doesn't make weight battle. Brian got the extra juicy cuts at the Butcher battle.
It's a fun fight. Both of them are fun fighters. They're exciting. I enjoy watching both these fighters fight. Yes, Brian Battle, as previously mentioned, did miss weight by 4 pounds, which is tough. Had a great performance in France at UFC Paris, but we shall see how this one plays out because I think that this has potential to be a really good fight and a really back and forth type thing. I'm still trying to figure out who I think is going to win because I think this is as pretty evenly split as it's going to get. As I think that it's a 50-50. I think it's a toss up. I could see Randy Brown finishing this. I could see Brian Battle finishing this. I'm gonna go out and say Brian Battle because he's been looking pretty great so far. But I think it's maybe decision. I'm gonna say decision.
Okay,
I say they have a back and forth, and it goes to a decision.
I'll be with you on Brian Battle. I do think that in terms of talent, I like Brian Battle's talent more than Randy Brown. I would really love to sit here and say, "Oh no, the weight cut's really gonna affect him," and the missing weight shows that he's not ready. But that's just not how it works. I forget what the actual record is, but I believe it is a positive record for fighters who miss weight and still go ahead with the fight. So I'll say that trend continues. I think Brian Battle will win. He'll get asked about it in the post-fight press conference, hopefully. And hopefully he actually addresses it and says something about it. I noticed a few times that doesn't always happen. And sometimes DC or whoever it is doesn't feel comfortable enough to press them on an answer for that, but I really wish he would. So I'll go Brian Battle, second round TKO. And that will be the wrap up on the prelims. Did you want to go over any of the early prelims?
Not really.
Okay. Then I believe Oh, there it is.
Yep. That's our time. That's the show. Hope you had a good time listening. We had a good time recording. It's going to be a special card. It's a good card. As you see, it's stacked from prelim all the way to the main event. Enjoy the time. Go watch the fights. Hang out. Whatever you may do. But yeah, hope you guys had a good time listening. We had a good time enjoying recording. Hope you guys come back for next time. Come back for the review when we will go back and kind of discuss our thoughts and opinions. Were we right? Were we wrong? Who knows? Come back for the review, for the UFC 310 review. Until next time, guys. Matane. See you later. Have a good night. Peace.
Hit that like button.
Yes. Like, subscribe, all the buttons.
Yes.